Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is a hip-hop artist whose knowledge about esoteric and spiritual subjects are infused throughout the medium of music and lyricism. His music is the embodiment of his own spiritual encounters and supernatural experiences. He has been influenced by the work of Manly P. Hall and has been inspired by greats like Jordan Maxwell, Santos Bonacci, and Michael Tsarian, who have also endorsed his music. The influence he has experienced from these spiritual and esoteric authorities and many others is apparent throughout the lyrics as well as the meanings of signs and symbols. His message is of light, love, and overstanding. Welcome to the show, Truth Seekah. What's up, brother?
Thank you, brother. What's going on, man? Thank you for having me. Glad we can finally connect, man. Been checking out your work for some time now and appreciate what you do and what you bring to the table, man. So like I said, it's good to kind of cross-pollinate now.
Yeah, heck yeah, man. You reached out a while back and I looked, and you have a podcast as well. And, you experience, it's interesting because I'll experience, my expression through sport. That's how I kind of, like to enjoy the universe, and yours is through music. So they're similar. Yours is a little bit more artistic, but we have our own expressions, yet we're out there with the podcast trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And we were having our own intense experiences. But your environment is very different than my Canadian environment. And so maybe you want to give people who are new to you and your work and your music. I listened to a few tracks that they're so unique and interesting and smart. And I've never really heard anybody kind of speak about that, these subjects in that way. So maybe you can just give people a little bit of a background about who you are.
Yeah. I go by the name Truth Seekah, doing spiritual, esoteric hip hop. And like you said, the whole environment, it's kind of weird because I actually come from the Christian background. So I used to do gospel hip hop. I used to be a Christian gospel artist, traveling evangelist, going to youth groups and youth conferences across the Gulf Coast, and people would have us out to speak to their youth and stuff like that. So I had a name for myself. I did it for like almost 15 years or so. And, I was doing that and then started having these experiences that took my walk a little bit deeper, asking the bigger questions and stuff. And so I would have all of these supernatural encounters and then refer them back to the Bible. Like I tried to use the Bible as a filter for everything when I was in that perspective. And then, just speaking about my encounters, speaking about my experiences, going out and stargazing and fasting and praying and just having these crazy things happen and seeing UFOs and angels and having these things that just blew my mind. As a psalmist, as a writer, I just naturally put that stuff in my music, and that was my life. And I started studying that stuff. And even first off from like a Christian perspective, and then I got into the work of the Manly P. Hall and stuff like that, because I wanted just another look at some of these things that I was encountering and stuff. So it really led me after some years to embrace this stuff and study it from a non-biased standpoint, which I felt like the Christian standpoint was like they kind of demonize everything. So started doing that, and my music just started to evolve a little bit from the Christian hip hop into esoteric and spiritual hip hop, and just talking about my life and my encounters and my experiences and stuff. So there, over the years, there's been some backlash because I did have a huge Christian following, and then now, we're talking about, I'm in the Bible Belt, I'm in the South, where like there's a church on every corner and there's churches right next door to each other, butted up to each other with different belief systems and denominations, and all of this kind of stuff. And here I am talking about UFOs, ET, mysticism, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm still talking about Jesus and the biblical stories and referencing the Bible, and they would rather me just do one or the other and not really tie in the Christian mysticism from it, from like my background and my encounters in the spirit realm with Jesus and stuff. So that's kind of where I am, and it's been a hard road. It's been a beautiful road at that though, but I understand that I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who resonate with the message, and just because I've been so vocal, that I've been in the church and had these type of encounters and experiences with like psychic abilities and stuff like that, and just being open about it, even when I've been told not to, even when I've been told to stay silent, that I'm gonna get in trouble on my job if one of my coworkers finds out that I'm going live talking about psilocybin, and just all of these things that would come against me and say, don't talk about this stuff openly. I found out when I just kind of threw off all restraint, that doors started to open, that people were going through the same thing, even from a Christian perspective, but they had nobody talking about it. So when we talk about the podcast or we talk about the music, like, it's blowing up right now. It's insane, the messages that I'm getting daily about people have, like, I'm the embodiment of their story. Like, I represent what they're going through, and nobody is talking about it from a Christian perspective. Like, a lot of people still have like their Christian foundations of like belief in Christ, and the Bible means a lot to them and things like that. So to still have those core beliefs, but still be okay to explore the spirit realm, to explore psychedelics, meditation, trance, yoga, some of these type of things that open up and essentially are used in spiritual awakening, moving from one level to the next, spiritual alchemy. And so that's kind of what my music and my journey represents. And it's beautiful. It is hard, you know what I'm saying? But you learn not to take things personal. You learn that it's not about you. You represent something higher than yourself and things like that. So if we was to take it personal, like, I would have quit a long time ago. This has kind of been coming since day one. And I've lost a lot of good friends along the line. There's always these trigger points, right? These people who are willing to walk with you, especially people coming out of the church and then going back to the church and then coming out. I deal with a lot of those people. So people will come with you. They'll walk with you for a couple of years, a couple of months, and then you say one thing that triggers them, and it's too scary. They have to, like, nah, you took it too far. You'll be having these conversations with people and you're dropping knowledge about the Illuminati. They're like, yeah, I know about the Illuminati. I know about this and that. And they're building. You're like, okay, yeah. And then you hit them with something else and like, oh yeah, I can't deal with you. That's too deep for me. You're doing this, you're doing that, or whatever. It's like, man, I thought y'all was deep. Let's go, So it's kind of weird being in the Bible Belt, like I said, where everybody's a Christian and everybody's, they demonize everything. They demonize meditation. And this is like childhood stuff, almost like elementary stuff. Meditation's like 101 with connecting on a spiritual plane. So I've put out within my music and even in blogs and things like that, where all of this stuff, to me, is beautiful because it's within the Bible. Like, the Bible talks about going in the trance state. The Bible talks about leaving your body, traveling to the third heaven in a realm that was so beautiful that you didn't know if you took your body with you or your body was left on earth. Like, it talks about these things regularly, talking with angels, being led by voices in the wilderness, fasting and praying, all of this stuff that I'm into. The Bible is like pro this stuff. It's not against it. Jesus, this was the life of Christ and the disciples and all of these people. So I find it, really beautiful that stuff's in the scriptures. And it's not like those people who have that faith in Christ or that faith in Christianity, you're not going that far out of the realm of what your true beliefs are, even in the Bible, because all of the stuff that I'm talking about, for the most part, is within the Bible,
Wow. Yeah, man. Well, I can only imagine that environment. And for me, being Canadian, and I was always strange to my friends, with what I would talk about and what I'd experienced. And I find it interesting, that breaking point. And what kind of came up for me is just like the ability to allow someone to share their experience without judging it.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if I've had an experience and I'm sharing it, I'm not saying you have to believe it. You can even think that I'm a liar, but what I can do is I can just share it. And if you can just allow that to be without judging it, you're going to expand what you're doing, like, you're going to be able to expand your awareness. And I think that I actually just met a new friend who grew up in the Bible Belt as well. And she was a preacher's daughter. And she talked about the blinders. And like, if you look outside of what we're telling you, you go to hell and Satan and the devil. And that is terrifying. Imagine being 4 years old, preacher's daughter, or even anybody in that type. And if you go outside of it, you could burn in hell forever. Yeah. And that's some terrifying stuff. And when people really believe that, intensely, and you're offering something else, now all of a sudden you become the thing that attack. Yeah. And I think that it's fine for anyone to have a belief and an opinion, and as strong as it may be, just without the attack. That's the thing, is just allow it to be and allow them to kind of go over there, without, taking that extra step. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe one of your first experiences that kind of twisted it for you, or some, and then how that led you to research and trying to piece that together, because you're not going to have any resources. So thank God for the internet, because before that you just be like, what am I going to do now?
For real, man. Yeah. And people are able to find us, right? You know what I'm saying? They're typing in certain keywords and search terms, and here we are talking about this stuff that they're going through. So that was essentially it for me. My spirituality and dabbling in the occult and things like that started when I was a kid, man, just having supernatural experiences as a kid. I remember, at 3 years old, waking up to the shadow beings being in the room and laying on top of you, holding you down to the bed. Like, I thought it was normal to have those encounters. So I had that happen to me as a kid, and it piqued my interest in the occult, or just in the supernatural. I say the occult, just in the supernatural or the occult, because the word means unknown. You know what I'm saying? The study of the unknown. So watching movies that kind of use magic and was into like showing you that there was another world laying on top of this world that we're in right now. And you would see that in movies and stuff, people able to travel within the world, to be able to manipulate matter and things like that. But it was always, taught that it was something that wasn't real. It's just in the movies. It's in the X-Men comic books, and, it's not real. And then just having more experiences and seeing that it was, and encountering beings as a teenager, man. I ended up stealing something from a warlock who had a protection spell on his belongings. They summoned the elemental spirits to come and get his belongings back from me that I stole as a teenager. And they appeared. A huge entity appeared, looked like a camel, 8 foot tall, ran past me and my cousin, knocked us both down, screamed, and ran. And from that point on, like, I was learning the occult from this guy, learning witchcraft and stuff. And I was a teenager when that happened. You would think that would like push you away and, hey man, I'm not messing with this. But it like took me even deeper, because I knew that the spirit realm was real, and that if I got good enough within the craft, that I can learn how to summon entities and things on my own. Like, if I got good enough, I can, summon this elemental or whatever, the demonic entity, whatever it was, So that took me in deeper. And like I said, going in and then having the Christian experience coming out of that, everything always comes back to like my childhood, like wanting to know what was going on. Was that demons? Was that angels? Was it spirits that are in between? So having those encounters, man, it set the baseline for my studies, and even as a Christian. And then being in churches and having mystical experiences, and people laying out and slaying in the floor, people shaking, vibrating, speaking in tongues, and then doing the studies where you see all religions do that. They all have, glossalia, where they're able to get into a trance and fall out, and the women are rolling on the floor. And these other, all types of other religions do that. And the churches I've been a part of, the women do that. They go into trance and they cry out for Jesus, and they cry out for the injustices of the world. The spirit enters them and they start rolling, crying, speaking in tongues and stuff in the Christian churches. So for having these trance encounters and these ecstatic experiences, it just, it was kind of normal to engage. Or the thing like you're talking about is like to take the blinders off, where you can't say this is just for Christians or whatever. Christians are the only ones who speak in tongues. Christians are the only ones who practice the laying on of hands and healing people by praying for them or speaking positive affirmations over them. Like that, tons of people do that. There's, what I'm saying, Reiki and chi energy and the Holy Spirit and all of this stuff, man. To see that it's not just privy to Christianity. And that was like the big thing for me, to know that, look, it's not my way or the highway. We're not the only ones who own these terms and prophetic abilities and psychic abilities and stuff like that. All of that's throughout the Bible, man. So, I've had a lot of encounters, man. I've had a lot of experiences, but the biggest part is just to know that you don't know, because in those realms, you have to figure out, you have to speak like you have everything figured out when you don't. And that shows, it shows a lot of stuff. You going to pastors and stuff, and if they don't know, they'll just demonize it or act like they have the interpretation for that particular biblical verse and stuff like that. And it is really refreshing coming from the background to go into the Bible and see all of these encounters again, man. Job being waken up by spirits in the middle of the night, and they are bringing messages to him, and he talks about like an encounter with a ghost, with an entity that woke him up, and people are still doing that. Like people are having encounters in the, you know what I'm saying, in the midnight hours, and bringing messages, and people walking into, going into Walmart or going into the food store, and you can feel and hear what people are thinking around you. Like, you know what I'm saying? That it talks about that in the Bible, and that's going on today. So it makes it more real for me to understand that those realms do exist, and that and people are being affected and influenced by those realms and don't even know it. You know, and that's like the majority of the people who listen to my music. It's not just like for entertainment purposes, man. Like it's something that reaches deep down within them, and you know, it's like the embodiment of their spiritual encounter. There's people who listen to the music because they've had those encounters. And then there's those people who start listening to the music and then they start having encounters after entertaining the stuff and researching it and thinking about it and hearing songs over and over and over about entities and UFOs and things like that. And then they start to see UFOs. They start to look up at the night sky, pay attention, and they start having their own encounters as well. It's been really cool.
Man, that's, you know, I've had a lot of podcasts. I've never heard about somebody getting tripped up by a warlock, and your cousin was there, you say.
Yeah, that's the thing. I always have to say that because I'm just a student of the universe, right? I listen to Joe Rogan. I used to listen to Joe Rogan when I had time. And they would talk about, you know, that these spiritual encounters are just DMT released in your brain, and it allows you to see ghosts and goblins or whatever, the UFOs or whatever. But there's something about it when two people experience the same thing. So I could see if it was just me, because I like even now, all of my UFO encounters, I'm still wrestling with them. Like, what the hell is going on? You know, and that's why I talk about it. I get everybody's opinion and what they believe and what they've experienced. And so I'm open to that. I'm not like, this is it. This is what it was. And if you don't believe me, you know, go, you know, I'm not into that anymore. I was in Christianity. Trust me. That's why I'm so against that. But, you know, when two or more are having these same encounters together, man, they let you know that something happened, you know, and I always have to submit it. And I always go back and look at some of these, you know, well, maybe that was a bird, maybe that was a satellite, you know. So I made sure that I wrote down every encounter that I've had, every experience because you're going to try to talk yourself out of them. That's how the human brain works. You're going to be like, well, it could have been a flock of seagulls. It could have been this. It could have been that. And, but like, there's so much to be said that comes along with those encounters, man. It changes your life. I'm doing this. I left Christianity of you know what I'm saying, evangelism and a huge platform, and did shows for thousands of people. You know what I'm saying? I left that to pursue what was my truth. And I didn't leave the fundamentals of the faith. Like I still, like my journey, it's all still part of my journey. I still believe in a lot of that stuff, but I would never try to not talk about something for fear of the repercussions. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why, but at the same time, like I stated earlier, like that's the reason I think that it's doing so well. Like my podcast and my music is doing so good because like all my friends, I have friends who had very similar encounters. We would have them together and they won't talk about them. They have jobs, they have family, you know, you know, you go live to, yeah, I summoned a UFO. I fasted and prayed and UFOs appeared to me, you know, and they sent messages to me telepathically. Like you start talking about that. Yeah, you sound like a crazy person. Like I said, we're in the Bible Belt on top of that, you know, but I'm talking about this stuff in my music and on my shows and stuff. So you got to understand, like, there's a target on my back, man, you know, but there's a target on anybody's back who's speaking about this stuff, the truth in general, whatever that truth is, especially when it goes against the mainstream narrative, or when I say the mainstream narrative, the religious narrative, whatever like is the establishment in your area, or whatever avenue you're sharing that through.
Yeah, man. Well, you touched on a lot of great points there. And I think that for me, it's awareness, right? It happened and it's like, it's what is. If you're sitting with a group of people and you see something, you know, and it's basically beyond explanation. You can't explain it. So you're afraid of it. So you'll create this thing, but we're conditioned as a society, especially if you go back, the more years you go back, the heavier the conditioning is. It's like, you don't speak about this, right?
Yeah.
So even if you had the courage to speak about something you didn't understand, you were terrified that what that other person would do to you, kind of like 1984. If you have the courage to be like, hey, like, I saw this, I saw this thing. What do you think that means? And we're exploring reality. And so when I think that you have the courage to share your experiences, it takes a lot. And people who have them know that they're not alone, because you're right. I've had the experiences too. And even a few hours later, usually you're like, okay, that still happened. And then the next day, and then maybe a few months, and then you're talking to someone and they can't handle it and they don't understand what you're talking about. And you're like, did that happen? It's like, no, I saw it. I even have it on camera. And it's like, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what happened. And so you're kind of like piecing it together, but people who, don't relate to it, they want it to be in a box. They want to just close it down. And that's just awareness. That's just awareness. Because for me, if I say to somebody on the street, hey, yeah, I've had this guy on my podcast today, talked about getting knocked over by a warlock, and be like, oh, that's nuts. I'm like, well, just listen to the guy's story. You know what I mean? And then you can decide after, but you can see in somebody's body language, you can see in these different things, and just let them express the story. And you're like, that's very fascinating. What an interesting experience, rather than, nope, that doesn't happen. Because we, I think, are moving into a much different reality, and through meditation and through these different things, a lot of things happen that are unexplainable. And it kind of opens this gap. If we're in a third dimension, we're going to a fifth dimension, and all of these things are real. Like, where do you go when you die? And maybe that'll tie back into the religious thing, is because that's where the fear comes from. They don't know what happens when they die. Nobody really does exactly. Yeah. And so it's terrifying, right? And so if you could kind of go to hell and that would happen, then it can kind of contain your life experience. And what I feel is important from what I've looked at in spirituality and esoteric and all that kind of stuff, is to have the most joyous, expansive, loving, harmonious, exciting life experience. And if your perspective on reality through religion, through spiritualism, through whatever the case is, and it provides you that, great. Yep. But if you're miserable and you're hating on everybody, then maybe it's not so great. So, it's if you, whatever you want to believe, that's like, I can go skateboarding and I can give you a hug and we can dance and I can listen to music and I can do all that stuff while simultaneously someone is doing something completely different.
Yeah. Perfect analogy, man. And there's people who are in Christianity. I have friends and acquaintances who are in Christianity, and they're the most joyous, loving people you'll ever meet, man. And they get it. They're spiritual. You know what I'm saying? But that's their realm of belief. That's their realm of thinking. That's their box, if you want to call it that. But then again, there's those other Christians who are like the most mean, evil spirited, out to get you, racist, you know what I'm saying, within that same religion. And that was kind of like the big thing for me that kind of allowed me to kind of transcend the Christian church or whatever, was the fact that understanding, like, I've dealt with people of different faiths, of different belief systems, and I've seen that same peace within them. Like those people in Christianity who had that love and that joy and that peace that surpasses all understanding, which the Bible speaks about, plainly, those people who had it. And then I would see Muslims who had it. Then I would see Hindus, and then just see people who were just seekers, spiritual people who don't hold to any religious doctrine or whatever the case is. And they had that same peace and that same joy. And Jesus talks about that, man. He talks about that being fruit of a spiritual life, one who is in fellowship with the Holy Spirit. And that's contagious, man. Like, that has the power to transform people's lives and helps you get through life, helps make the the battles and the stresses and things like that a little bit easier to bear. And that's what I'm about, and I talk about it all the time. Like, I would rather, like, my whole show, I want to talk to people who have had tangible experiences that have changed their life versus people who just have theories of what it is, or doctrines or belief systems or whatever, and want to go over that. So I have to guard over it that way, because I want to know something that people can apply to their life, that can make them a better person, that can make their experience, a little bit more enjoyable. So the spirituality that I possess, I believe has that. It's a tangible thing. And that's what I'm about. I'm not about conspiracy theories and trying to talk about stuff that I can't prove just as a theory. Like this stuff that I'm talking about, it's real life. You know what I'm saying? For me, first of all, and you start talking about it, you find out, yeah, a lot of other people have had these same encounters or something very similar. Like you said, you've experienced a lot of this stuff I'm talking about as well. And you know what I'm saying? The psilocybin encounters and going into the spirit realm and deep states of meditation, coming out, trying to make sense of what it is. But for one, I would say the fruit of a meditation experience or a psilocybin experience is life-changing, to help you be more in the now moment, to better yourself. It'll show you the things that you need to get out of your life, the people you may need to cut off, the pursuits, the stuff out of there that's not right, that you got to get out. And I equate that a lot with the teachings of Christ, man, talking about searching out your heart. You know what I'm saying? Be anxious for nothing, always be in the now moment. And as you're able to go in to these states through meditation or psilocybin encounter or ayahuasca or whatever, like there's just similar message that is being shared, and it's all about the now moment. There's new agers and spiritualists who are writing books about this, teaching you how to be present and to be aware. And that, because that's the only time that we have. We're not promised tomorrow. We can't go back and change something that we did yesterday or something that somebody did to us. We only have this moment. So every conscious moment, 7 seconds ago, I can't take back what I just said, man. Like, this is the only thing that we have, and we have to be present and make the best decisions and the best choices. And hopefully, from what I teach and what I believe, it's that's going to empower people and make them better people, man. Let them know that they're not alone.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. I totally resonate with all that. And while you're chatting, what it made me think about is just how you interpret the Bible. So if you look at the autobiography of a yogi, and you'll take Christ's teaching and you'll say, this is, a passage from the Bible, and Yogananda will say what he meant. And it's so beautiful and on point, and it resonates, and it's about truth and compassion. So it's like the eyes, right? But there are books missing from the Bible that make it a little bit more confusing, and it's really simple to understand. And this is the hard thing if somebody is in that religious thing, because like there's so much goodness in the church. There's so much potential for community, for expansion, for living a good life. And some people are doing it so great. And there is a capacity to control minds and hearts of people, which is historically kind of what's been happened. If you kind of want to take a peek and go to different spaces and have a look and be like, oh, this isn't a full perspective. This is unhealthy. And, if you want to go all the way with this is terrible. This is not the message. And so kind of where I wanted to lead with that is, where you'll look at the Bible now from a different lens, right? You can see war and hate and take it literally. And, this is the way, but we're talking about like the spirit of Christ and Christ consciousness and walking the path. And so if you think like judging someone else and attacking them and trying to do these, like, squash the plant, squash the animal is something that Christ would do, then I think that you didn't read the book right, And so, if you want to be Christ-like, you want to live in Christ consciousness, what would he do? Is like, would he judge? It's like, judge not, lest you be judged. Okay, well, we'll let them do their thing. I'll set the example, and you can make it really simple. If somebody's super overweight and they're 500 pounds and they're sick, and you can say, that's cool. You don't go up to them and say, hey, you're terrible because you're overweight and, you're a loser, whatever the case is. You can just be in shape, eat vegetables. If they ask you a question, you can say, hey, I'd love to help you. No problem. These are the things that I did, and you are the example of it. And one of the other really important points that you touched on, I think, is being an actual seeker. It says in the Bible, seek and ye shall find. And I don't know that many people actually seeking, to be honest, on this planet. I grew up just so curious about what was going on. I had a religious upbringing, but it wasn't, yours is dialed in 100, 100 fold. And I'm just kind of looking at it and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I traveled the world. I went to Nepal and meditated with monks, and they have the beautiful Buddhism. It's a perspective, and it's intelligent, and there's really great principles, and it's open to all things. Now you go to China and they take Buddhism, and it is not these
Yeah.
things. I didn't know you could do that to Buddhism, but they did it. And so maybe you can talk about, what you think like the true message of the Bible is, or what you found from studying different religions and how that encompasses. And finally, your views on Christ consciousness.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it's beauty is in beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So like, people are going to read those same manuscripts and they're going to get different interpretations from it. They're going to and the scriptures talk about that like it's not a history book. Like, it's not to, like, people read the Bible and then they try to go find the Ark of the Covenant, or they try to go find Noah's Ark, and there's expeditions and excavations and stuff, and people are trying to find Noah's Ark or trying to find all of these relics in the Bible, and they're bending the truth and saying that they found it and stuff. But essentially, the Old Testament and the way it's written is in allegory about our lives, about our spiritual walk, our spirituality, all of the other nations in the scriptures that the Israelites came against and had to fight, and they wanted to steal stuff from them and tried to kill them, and were possessing the land that was theirs. Like, that's all symbolic about stuff that goes on within our own spiritual journey. And their names, when you do the study, and if you break down the Hebrew, even the Greek, some for the New Testament, you find out that those names are like trauma, you know what I'm saying? Strongholds, disappointments and stuff. And they have to do with these negative attributes of the human psyche, these things that you know what I'm saying, on this journey, the stuff that we deal with, and the way that they overcame these other nations that may have been called the Ishmaelites or the Amalekites or whatever. You got to break it down and see what that's talking about. The way they overcame in very similar fashion is the same way that we are to do it. And the idolatry, the golden calves, like, those are presented to each one of us, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was presented to Jesus to bow down and worship Satan, worship the fallen one. Then I would give you all the treasures of the world. Like, we're presented with these golden calves in our lives too. Some people get stuck there. That golden calf for some people could be religion, could be a relationship, could be music, or whatever the case is. It's different for everybody. And it's really interesting. Like, there's this way of looking at it, because I had someone on the show about 2 weeks ago who comes from the Bhakti yoga tradition, and was talking about this very similar schism within their own practice about their scriptures being literal or symbolic in allegory. And even within their own religion, there's this a very similar like, you know what I'm saying, schism as is in Christianity, for those who understand like the meanings of the Bible. It's not telling the story of King David, of Solomon, and all these people. It's telling our story. This is a story about us. And then as you read the New Testament, it goes on to kind of show you that, and Jesus shows you that. And there's times where Jesus was teaching, and he's in a temple, and he said, and they're all doing like a Bible study essentially. He says, "Y'all know the stuff we're reading? It's about me. This stuff's talking about me." Then we're going to read even further, and it talks about how all of that stuff was an allegory, and it's about covenants, and it's about, you know what I'm saying, the spiritual seed that's within the hearts and mind of every person on the earth. It talks Jesus in the book of John. It talks about Jesus. It says, "Jesus is that light that lighteth every man that comes into the earth." Not Christians, not people who have said this prayer, not people who believe with this doctrine, but it said Jesus is the light that lighteth every man. And I believe that flame is in the hearts and lives of every person on the earth. Shoot, you know what I'm saying? Like, in like the Hindu tradition, they believe that there's an actual fire within your heart, with an actual fire there that you know what I'm saying, is there. And that's the picture of the sacred heart of Jesus. And then it takes someone who is enlightened, someone who has that spark, someone who is in that note, to breathe upon that fire, that flame within you, so that you are set ablaze for the truth, that you have your spiritual encounter, that you come into the baptism of fire, or the baptism of the Holy Spirit, or a Kundalini awakening. All of these things, it's speaking about the same thing: the chi energy, the pranayama, the Holy Spirit. I believe that it's all the same. The fruit of it's the same. People's lives being transformed. They become more peaceful. They become more caring, more loving. When they actually have that encounter, they just begin to burn with the fervent heat. They start crying, shaking, and they feel like all the evil, all the bad, the wrong they've ever done is burnt out of them. When they have this encounter, they essentially feel like they've been born again. And I've had that encounter in the Christian church. I've had similar encounters in Kundalini yoga. And to me, it was the exact same thing. The exact same fruit came from it. When we start speaking about this stuff, people feel like they own those terms. And nope, that's not the Holy Spirit. They want to, tell you why it's distinctly different and this and this and this. But it's the same thing when it's talked about. We have different words. I'm talking about psychic abilities. Psychic abilities are all through the Bible. They don't call them psychic abilities. It doesn't say ESP. It doesn't say pranayama in the Bible. There's different terminology, but it's the same fruit. It's the same situation. They're called spiritual giftings, a word of knowledge, a word of wisdom where you're going and the Holy Spirit speaks to you and gives you instructions about your life, about the people around you, being able to discern spirits that are on people or riding people or in people. That's in the Bible. It's called the Discernment of Spirits, and we would call it being empathic. You know what I'm saying? And it's universal. Nobody owns these terms and these abilities, if you want to call them that. But when we're able to kind of move beyond the dogma, and that can take years, some people never do that. A lot of people, they make strides, they come a long way, they come out of it, and then there's that fear kicks in. Well, what if I'm lying? What if I'm mistaken? What if I'm sending people to hell? Trust me, it happens to me left and right. I have people who I've been walking with for years. They have a change of heart. True Seekah's a false prophet. I'm going to let everybody know about it. Stay away from him. And they renounce their mushroom use. They renounce their meditation. They renounce their float tank experiences. You know what I'm saying? And they still do this. We look at Stephen Bancars and people like that. You know what I'm saying? Some people who are even, they have platforms, and there's this thing that what if I'm wrong? And they just renege on the whole thing. And it's a journey, man. Coming out of religion is hard. It's very hard. I've went back and forth so many times. Like I've made strides. I've got rid of, and then I get rid of all my books, Manly P. Hall, Jordan Maxwell. I get my music, all of it. That's how deep it is. Like you're saying, if you're putting your eternal salvation on this, right? If you're basing where you're going to spend eternity upon being right and about your doctrine and what you believe, that's scary. Some people never overcome that.
Yeah, man, you made a lot of amazing points, and it's so funny how these things work, because I just had a really deep discussion with a friend last night about that, who was the preacher's daughter. And, she just kind of talked about her experiences and, needing to play the piano and do all these things and look at it as a kid and just be so interesting. And everything was like forced, like it was especially bad because she was the daughter, right, in the Bible Belt. And so she's like, I couldn't do anything wrong. Everybody was like looking at me, trying to protect me. And what it makes me think of is this part where you need somebody outside of you to save you, right? You need a guy, this goes back, this is in Jesus's time. Jesus goes in and he goes and he clears the temple, right? You don't just stand there wearing a robe with a book in your hand, telling these people, this group of people, that you have spiritual authority over them. Jesus was like, don't do that. And what are people doing now? You go to this big building, there's a guy up there talking, and if you go beyond these words, now something outside of you is giving you spiritual domain, spiritual over your own being. And the message is, no, you create that. And I was talking about this a few podcasts ago on that fundamental shift. We need to regain our own authority over our own existence. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be confused. It's, but when you put that eternal damnation on you, that is like a big wager, right? It's a huge, that's an all or nothing wager. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you better get it right.
You have to be right.
Right? You got to be right. Because, maybe I'm wrong and I'm going to burn in hell for all of eternity. Now, the thing is, I'm pretty confident that's not going to happen because through meditation and different experiences, things have happened. I read the book through certain eyes. I was like, no, this is what Jesus said. Look, he said this, God's within you. Okay, cool. Check. Said, be a good human. I'm being a good human. Check. Okay. And the other thing that I just say is so basic is just collaborate with your environment. Look at the species, look at all of nature, right? Just be like nature. Nature is collaborative. You know, you don't see beavers going around and clubbing other beavers because this beaver likes that bush and this one likes this bush. And you know what I mean? It's just some ridiculous stuff. And then I think what you're speaking of as well is the dark night of the soul, which is a fascinating experience because you get to this point and it just crushes everything you think you know, right? And so if you go through life and you're taught one way and it's not correct, that's, again, a huge thing to swallow because you're starting from scratch. And that's where people will have awakenings, 21, 28, 30. And that's why, like Burning Man, I met a guy last year who I just started chatting to, and he was in the military and he was Asian. So the Asian programming can be really intense. You know, the traditional Chinese family, you worked really, really, really hard, had to go to school, learn all the things, really no wiggle room for anything else. And was in the military, even in a gang, did a lot of bad stuff, but now he just had the awakening and is like, oh my God, what was I doing? And I was like, it's okay, man. It's like, it's okay. You were asleep. You know, you were doing these things. Now you know, though. Now you know the difference. And now you're going to be judging yourself because you're out of that fuzz that is kind of placed on you. So I guess the question that I'd ask is, okay, if we're talking about UFOs, warlocks, multiple dimensions, and just an expanded awareness, because when you keep pushing that reality in that thing, you're going to start to open your eyes. You get more light spectrum, you get more stories, and you'll notice if you have the courage to share your weird story, most likely someone else has had that weird story, something similar. They don't understand it. And there's no guidebook for this. It's not like, oh, well, when this weird thing happens, you reference this book, you know, and then you figure it out. It's like, none of us know. But when we share together, that's how we're communicating to get to a higher level of awareness. If you think about like the stoned ape theory, if that's a real thing, you got a bunch of monkeys, they're not conscious yet, and apes or whatever, and then they do the psilocybin and they start to breach consciousness. They're not going to know what that is, right? But then they start to kind of try to communicate, and the language changes, and language is super important. So been going for a bit there. So the question I'll ask you is, if it starts to expand to fairies and demons and angels and gods and things like that, what have you kind of pieced together for what you think is actually going on here and how to live, you know, a joyous life? That's really what we want to get down to. We want to get down to, you know, trying to figure out the truth, but being fulfilled, being excited about life, and applying these spiritual principles, you know, walk the path, right? You could be, if you're like a Satanist, right, but you're the kindest person and you're doing all these kind acts and you're just like so kind, but you believe something like really weird, you know, but it's just like, but you're being kind to be like, I don't care what the label is. Like the label might be a challenge for me, but all you're doing is being kind. So you know what? Have at it. You know?
I mean, if we look at like what the stuff we're talking about, especially like in the Bible Belt, you know, I got a frame of reference. Aliens, UFOs, fairies, everything you're talking about, demons, jinn, elementals, things that are not just angels and demons, but the wide spectrum. I believe that they're all real, you know, and we've talked about it like it's a consciousness expansion. Whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it. Like if you're looking for fairies, I believe you can find them. If you're looking for gnomes and elementals, I believe you can study that realm and find them. I don't know exactly how that works. I don't know if it becomes real to you, but I know that your reality shifts and you see that when the majority, almost all the people you'll come to contact with on a daily basis have no idea that you've been talking to fairies and have been appearing to you, seeing, just like nobody knows I've been awake at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you know, when the sun's rising at 5 and 6 and seeing UFOs and communicating and having angelic encounters. They don't know that stuff. So your reality is different than the person sitting next to you on your job in your cubicle. I believe all of this stuff is real, man. I think that the holy books and things like that, all of them have a piece of the truth in it. Like you said, a lot of the books that were taken out of the Bible have a lot of this stuff in there about, a lot of it actually talks about taking trips back and forth from heaven to earth and stuff, and being caught up in the spirit realm to these other dimensions and stuff. That stuff was taken out of the Bible. We look at Enoch and all the truth and stuff that's in there, that you actually have to know that stuff to interpret the rest of the Bible, because they're like quoting it and they're talking about reference points and stuff, and you don't even know that stuff. So a lot of it's real. What's going on as far as like we're talking about aliens or whatever, I just believe that they're angels. You know what I'm saying? Like the easiest term, they don't show up and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I'm an alien. No, they don't call themselves aliens. I don't even think they call themselves angels, but it would be what we would call them. If they call themselves, you know what I'm saying, Palladians, Arcturians, whatever star systems they're from, I don't know, maybe. They've never told me that was their name. You know what I'm saying? But you know, there's people who claim that they have. All of it's real. I believe that I believe in God. I believe in the Great Spirit. I believe when we use a lot of different names for God, Yahweh, which is kind of a biblical term because he says, I am that I am, and I will be whatsoever I will be. And I found that God, or that consciousness or universe, whatever you want to call it, it's a little bit more personal for me. He's a father to me. You know what I'm saying? He's a friend. It's someone I can talk to when I have no one else to talk to. I can fellowship with this God that created everything in the whole universe. He isn't the universe. I believe he created the universe, and it's an intimate relationship. And when times get hard, man, that's the beauty of the Christian experience. Like, it lets you know that, look, you know, when you feel like, when you're at the end of your rope, don't give up. You know, there's hope for you. There's a love that you can tap into. There's an experience. And some people need to kind of go outside of themselves, man. Some people, you know, they need that at first and then to know that they're created in the very image of that entity, or that God, or that Father, that Creator, that Spirit, that presence, man. Some people need that. I needed it. I was at rock bottom, man. I was going crazy dealing with these entities, dealing with demons and elementals and all that stuff. I was going insane, and I needed a higher power. You know, we look at AA and stuff like that, man. You need this power outside of yourself sometimes. I say, it's not me, it's this that I'm getting my energy from. So there is a lot of good stuff that goes on within the churches, and I have my head is off to that the ones who are really doing that, you know what I'm saying? That's not all of them are doing that, but that, and I really like the fact that in the churches and stuff too. I say churches, that's a broad statement. There's so many doctrines and denominations and stuff, but for me, I really like the fact that some of them are essentially keeping up these practices that I've been talking about. The psychic abilities, the stuff that is talked about in the mystery schools, the laying on of hands and healing, going into trances, being caught up, receiving visions. I love that stuff. That stuff's, you know, and especially as we're moving towards more of a technologically advanced civilization, that stuff's kind of being, you know what I'm saying, feathered out a little bit. So I do like the fact that I can look at them falling on the ground, rolling and speaking in tongues and receiving dreams and visions like that. I like that stuff. I'm excited that they're doing it, even if they don't know what they're doing, that it is something more ancient and more primitive than they even know. And it's even more universal. The Holy Spirit, you know, getting all of that stuff, man. It's so beautiful to me. But, you know, it's a spiritual practice for a lot of people. I don't own any of the terms. I'll use whatever term, and it's helped me in my music. You know what I'm saying? I can talk about aliens. I can talk about angels. I can talk about the rankings and the hierarchies of angels that are in the Bible. We could talk about the jinn and the different names of the different aliens and things. Because to me, it's essentially the same thing. We don't own anything on that. So it's a spiritual practice. It's beautiful, but it comes down to the simplicity of walking in love and just walking like Jesus. Like a lot of get into like church and things like that. They want to argue about what Jesus meant. He really meant this. Well, that scripture wasn't around to here. Well, that doesn't even exist. Like, it really gets down to the simplicity of just doing what he did. He said, look, I'm showing y'all the way. What I'm doing, greater things you'll do. Go out and do these things. Show grace and love to those who don't deserve it. Show grace and peace to those who have never experienced it. It'll change their life, man. You know what I'm saying? And just do the simple things that Jesus did, man. And it will change this. It will change the world. Look what it did for him and the disciples and what they went out to do. And that message is still there, man. It's not, you know what I'm saying? People are getting that. People are leaving the churches in droves, but they still get it, man. And that's why they're leaving. It's because they get it. They want the spiritual encounter. They want the relationship with God, but they don't want the dogma. They don't want the rules and regulations, the touch not, taste not, and all this man-made stuff that they built on top of this encounter. That's what was my deal. Like, I had a supernatural encounter with God, and then I went to church to try to build on top of that, or like to find out what that was, or grow in relationship with that. And I ended up getting dogma, religion, and all of these other things that was never meant to happen. So that's the beauty of it, man, that it's a personal relationship for everybody with their creator, the Father God, the whole feminine aspect of the Holy Spirit is more of a nurturer aspect, just looking at like all of it, how everything just coincides. And I think we're all really, at the end of the day, all the religions and stuff, I think we're all saying the same thing. We just have to move past the dogma and things like that. And my life totally changed when I seen that.
Well, man, well, thanks for sharing all that. At the end, what it made me think about was just somebody in a different religion, let's say Chinese, Buddhism. And again, these are broad. We're not, I don't think the intention here is to say anything. We're not saying that, what you're doing is wrong or what you believe is wrong. It's more the structure, right? So if you go, in World War II and you're in the Nazi camp, that's a structure. You might be a good dude, but you're in a Nazi camp. Like, it's a pretty intense analogy, I guess. But it's just like you're within this structure, right? Like even Canada, USA is different. Your church in Alabama, very different than the church I would go to in Vancouver. Now, neither of them are right or wrong. It's just an experience. And are you enjoying that experience? Is it allowing you growth? And are you happy? And you said a lot of things that it made me think about. Have you ever heard about Yahweh as a mathematical formula?
Probably.
Yeah. So there's a course of Robert Grant. So he created it's like pi over something else. So it kind of blew my mind, and it gets intense. It's very fascinating. So then I started thinking about compassion for those in religion. And I swear yesterday I was thinking about having a sign in Alabama just saying going clear, like Scientology, going clear of religion. And, again, I really have respect for Jesus. I've studied Jesus, but I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read some Vedas. I've read tons of Buddhism. I've been with Buddhists, and it's the message. And Jesus was a master of that perspective. He's like the master in North America or whatever. He's the master there. Then you got a master in China. You got a master in London, and it becomes this teaching. But you can distort the teaching and things get a little bit crazy. That's human stuff. That's not the master. So then I thought about just the compassion for somebody in the circumstance that you have, because, a lot of the people I think that watch my podcast, they would say, maybe they get like a 3 to 6 out of 10 on social conditioning from your parents and your community, right? You got to go to school and do this university, right? And here's a religion, and we're going to give you like a 4 out of 10 intensity. When you're in Alabama or certain parts of the United States, it's a 10 out of 10 intensity, probably, as I can understand it by talking to you. And that's, everybody, and then everybody in your community is like this, and all your elders. This is just what everybody does. So if you start to think differently, that's terrifying, because you are maybe going to lose your friends, maybe even your family.
Yeah, big
that
time.
Would be,
a lot of people have. Yeah,
that's awful. It's so awful.
It really is.
And you got to be right. And that's where I think stuff gets crazy, like Scientology. That's a thing. People lose. They say, no, cut them out. Now, there can be vibrational shifts, and people will cut out naturally. But there's a way to kind of do that from a higher standpoint.
Because they're a threat, though. You're trying to demonize these people and actually mark them because they're a threat to what you believe, and the threat is, what if they're not right? What if there's another way of looking at the same thing? What if there's another perspective? We're all looking at the same thing, but just from a different perspective, and so if you challenge that, or you bring about another, like all that stuff happened to me coming out of the church realm, still happens. I get comfortable sometimes and it still happens, but I'm used to it now. But you become a threat, man. And they will you know what I'm saying, mock you and say all types of manners of evil against you. But we're talking about Jesus again. Jesus warned of the same stuff. Like they did it to him. He said the servant is no greater than a master. If they did it to me, they're going to do it to you. You think you're special? You're a follower of Jesus, but you don't want any persecution. You're a follower of Jesus. And the same things that they say about me, I'm not the only one, you know. It's a lot of people listening, but if you, like they said the same thing, like you're following Satan. They told Jesus is doing miracles, healing people. And they said, oh, well, you didn't do it right. You didn't do it in our tradition, or we believe you using the power of Satan. I was I'm using the power of Satan. Jesus is like, I'm using the power of Satan to heal people. You guys don't even get it. Like if a kingdom divided against itself will not stand, how does Satan cast out Satan? So I'm going about doing good works, not bad stuff. I'm healing people. This person was sick. Now they're healed and set free, but I'm doing bad stuff. Okay. So Jesus went through the same thing. We're in good company.
Yeah, man. He went through all of it. Exactly. And I was thinking this the other day that we're just in the same scenario. It is literally the same scenario as that story. There's no different, except for now we have much more access to information. Back then it would be harder. It'd have to be like an oral teacher. And these teachers are there, you know, just seek truth, get to the root of it. You know, if you want to go to religion and you want to be a Catholic or you want to be a Christian, get to the root. Start to go in. Jesus said, look within. God is within. He said those words. Find it. Find what resonates, you know, like if you seek, honestly, you will find it. And it's not going to be anything with fear or judgment or hate. You know, Jesus didn't have time for that. You can't be hating on everybody on the planet. He had a lot to probably hate on, you know. He's just like, okay, that's wrong. That's wrong. Don't murder that person. You know what I mean? Don't murder like all of those people. That's not
a full-time job, man. He would have had a ministry of exposing people, which a lot of people have out here. Their ministry is to expose other people. You know, it's insane.
Mm-hmm. And so what I wanted to kind of touch on was I think the interesting thing where science and spirituality and religion are starting to merger. And so I've been going through Resonant Science. I'm going through this course by Robert Grant, The Etymology of Number. It's a mind blower. I'm probably retaining maybe 1% of what I'm looking at. It's right? Just like
it's crazy.
I'm just taking it.
Listen to because it is like,
I'm just taking it to the face, man. The very little's going in, but the overarching, you know, like this is how I've come to it. Now, if you're smart enough to dispute this, you can get right into it. And I'm not, but other people are. So I'm kind of getting the root knowledge. And one of the things I think is coming down for me is frequency. And, you know, if we're in an electromagnetic universe, frequency. So you're going about your day and you're operating at, say, 90, which is love, joy, harmony, forgiveness, kindness, compassion, non-judgment. Right. And you're in that frequency. Now, when people are in a lower frequency, 40 of like shame, guilt, anger, judgment, they know that you're at a higher frequency. They know in their being, like they're, you know, people who do things that harm others, they're not fully aware. They're not fully in their mind. It's not who they are. Humans don't naturally go out and try to kill other humans. We're tribal. We're communal. We're kind. We're loving. That's our nature. That's what human nature is. And it can get bred out through left brain conditioning, through logic. That part of the brain is really structured in school, and really they focus on that because the other side is spiritual. It's creative. It's connected. It's universal. It's natural. And so if you can be that frequency of kindness and compassion, what happens is you're automatically almost healing them, because I forget what the term is. Maybe someone out there will know what I'm talking about, but along the lines is like in the frequency world, the higher frequency, the lower frequency is going to get absorbed into the higher frequency. The higher frequency always wins and serve. So if you want to serve your community, stay in that frequency as much as possible and just allow others to do their thing, but they notice it, you know, they notice that example. And it's the same thing if we're in a society of overweight people and, you know, everybody in Alabama, they might be, I think it feels like that would be possible. And you're just super in shape. You set the example of, you know, there's one in shape guy in our town. How does he do it? Well, we see him going, he's getting more vegetables than us. He seems to go to the gym a lot. He's going for jogs. So you're setting that example, but you don't have the time to go around and telling everybody about why eating Kentucky Fried Chicken all you can eat every single day is probably not ideal for your health. It's like, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to eat some vegetables and go to the gym. you know?
Yeah, man. That's, I think it goes hand in hand with like the deeper meaning behind the spirituality for me. Even what you were just talking about a while ago, like how can we um, enjoy this life more? How can we walk in peace and enjoy more? It's to do what we were put here to do. The two greatest days that in a person's life is the day that they're born and the day that they find out why they were born. Like, why were you put here? What makes your heart beat? What do you love to do? And whether it's painting, art, working out, health, fitness, conversations, connecting people, whatever it is, find out what you're put here to do and to do it. And that's one of the greatest joys for me, and that's been on my plate as of recent, the last few years, is to be able to do music and podcasting and this type of thing full time, to pursue it and to do it. And so that's one thing I would say too. The people that have that vision within them and they want to manifest something, they want to be a speaker, they want to write a book, whatever it is, they want to bring this to the table, they want to create movies and videos or do music full time. And I think the passion to pursue that, man, is where it is. And like you're talking about, not like worrying or getting mad at other people or doing it full time and you don't think they're doing it right and all of this kind of stuff, but to really find out what's working for them. And that's what I love to kind of tie into, my podcast with my guests is people, how did they get to do what they're doing full time? Like, how did they make that transition? And we freely talk about this stuff. And a lot of it has to do with the power of the now moment, the spirituality, gratitude, walking in blessings and stuff like that. So the spirituality ties back into it. You can go all over the place with aliens and angels and all this kind of stuff, but the whole spirituality is to become a better person, making good men better. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it's about. Following your passion, following your dream, and finding out how to do that. And that right there, man, like, if you're doing, like, that's gonna negate all, like, the majority of the bitterness and the hatred and the rage. People are waking up, going to dead end jobs, and they hate what they're doing for a living, and they want to find out how to do it, and they've given up on their dreams and stuff. So a big part of what I believe in as far as spirituality is concerned and stuff is to pursue that. And I've been doing it. I've been watching this stuff manifest and come to fruition over my life that I've been dreaming of for years, and it's finally happening. And I look at my friends and people who are doing the similar things, and we're working together. We're trying to see what we can do. How do we make these dreams manifest? And I talk about dreams, psilocybin comes into play, like going into those encounters, finding out what you're supposed to do with your life and getting a game plan on how to do it. That's what happens on my journeys. I'm getting, revelation about my life and what to do. And it could be done. So as far as making, like, enjoying life, making it more comfortable for yourself and for other people, do what you were put here to do. Don't wait. Make it happen. Do something today that's going to manifest for tomorrow, whatever it is. If it's sending an email, whether if it's, you want to do an internet web show, get you a good webcam, get you a microphone, do something that's going to create that life that you want for yourself tomorrow. This stuff is not overnight. You know what I'm saying? It's practical ways to do it. That's a big part of the spirituality for me.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I resonate and love all that. I did a podcast with Danny Nemu, and it talks about psychedelics in the Bible, and he proves it. So for those of the religious people listening and are aware, check out that podcast with Danny Nemu. And if you read it, what it makes me think of, I watched the UFC. I like the UFC. I grew up a martial artist, and that's like my spirituality base. I just wanted to know what humans were capable of, what I'm capable of, and what is going on. And so through the martial arts base, it's very much about going within, self-discipline, respect for yourself and respect for your community. Now, if you're judging someone else and being a total dickhead, how is that respect? And God, Jesus, no religion I've ever seen says that, just so even spirituality for me can be as simple as just don't be an asshole to other people.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Just hold that stuff in, and that's your own crap. All that stuff you're flinging is all you and your own stuff. So
whatever helps you not to snap, man, whatever helps you not to do what you turn on the news and see these people doing, whatever stops you from doing that, I'm for it, man. whatever practice it is, whatever if you in the yoga, if you're in the meditation, you're in the martial arts, you're in the Christianity, whatever it is, if it helps you not to be a jerk and not to shoot up the whatever, shoot up a store or a school or something like that, man. It's insane. Like you gotta go to the place where you're finding peace, man. Go to where the peace is for you. Everybody's different. What works for me is not going to work for everybody, but I do believe in universal principles and stuff as well that are universal in all the religions practice it. All of the spiritual traditions talk about it and stuff too. So there is that seam that kind of runs through everything together. I believe in that too.
Yeah, 100%. And, it's a different language. We're talking about words and we're talking about language. We're saying a sound. We attach meaning to it. So love has a different meaning to all of it's intangible. We don't know what's going on. So if you speak Arabic, Hebrew, Chinese, Cantonese, you have all these dialects to figure out, like as a monkey, we're looking at a chair or a microphone, right? Microphone. It's a sound. You can create so many different sounds to bring into reality through word. What is it in the beginning? There was the word, and the word was God, right? Mm-hmm. Sound, like reality.
The word, yeah. The
and
vibration.
So, in a consumer versus creator type of mentality, right?
Yeah.
So you've got, I used to listen to Joe Rogan. I don't got the time because you're a creator.
I am Joe Rogan now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Legit.
Yeah, you're your own Joe Rogan, and he did an example. You're like, ooh, that's an interesting path. I like elements of that. I can go do that. I'm Bruce Lee because I saw him do the thing. I did martial, but
you got to learn from everybody, bro. What's working? Yeah. What's working for them? If you're doing something and it's producing bad results, I'm not going to do it. And I it's a example. I came up around a lot of drug use and drug dealers and stuff. My brother was a drug dealer and stuff, but I seen what happens when you start smoking crack cocaine or you start smoking crystal meth. So I never did that because I seen it deteriorate people. I seen it mess up families and relationships. So when it was presented to me, trust me, it was. I grew up in that environment. Hey, let's smoke crack. No, I'm not doing it. And that's just one example, but then it kind of moves into learning from your mistakes, but learning from the mistakes of others, the mistakes and their successes. Look, man, this guy, he goes live every day. He's consistent with it. His platform's growing, his audience is growing. He's being consistent. Something's up with consistency. Let me try that out. And dude, when you just show up and you're consistent with whatever you want to do, whatever you're building, if you have a garden outside, you're going to have to go out there. You're going to have to go out there every day. You got to be consistent. You got to maintain. You might have to pull some weeds one day. You may have to water it because it's not raining. And if you want to expand it, you got to get the garden hoe out there and go out there and break up the hard ground, the stony ground. That's some of the hard work that you have to do, but you have to be consistent. You have to do something every day that you want to manifest for tomorrow.
100%, man. Consistency is everything. And I'm relearning it through skateboarding, the other day, because I was skating almost every day. I was like, oh man, I'm going to be able to get really good again. It was the first realization that I could do that again. Yeah. And it was because I was skating way more, and skateboarding is super hard, super precise. So consistency is everything. And you're totally correct, where you can look at what people are doing to model that, to create your reality in basically, I like to share the example of Street Fighter and playing a game. And so every single day you got 24 hours, and it's this like energy, it's this energy that you get. We all get the equal amount. Now, you can spend all of those daily coupons on hating everybody and thinking about how they're wrong and how you can take them out and how that person's a Satanist and how that person's wrong and this person's going to hell. That's a lot of energy wasting. But rather than holding that energy and thinking, who am I? What do I want to create? What do I love to do? And bring all that energy within yourself, because the second you judge, you just give like a whole square, like boink, right? And then you start spewing hate, and people will get in this cycle of they get together and then they do it as a group. And so there's no building. You don't have time for it.
And there's this weird notion that you have to get over too. It's in Christianity. It's also in other religions as well. But the suffering servant, that you can't have nice things, that you can't enjoy life. Like the whole Gnostic Gnostic thing where you have to kind of stay away from the pleasures of this world, that you can't have a good life and things like that. Or the 5%er rule, you know what I'm saying? The poor righteous teacher, that you have to be a poor righteous teacher and forsake everything and become like a nomad and stuff. And there's people like in their mindset, they believe that. I used to believe it. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to pursuing your dreams, like in the Christian church, bro, there's like, they're taught that like your dreams are evil. Like the things that you want to do, that you have to sacrifice your dream to be a good Christian and a good follower.
I didn't
Dude,
know
that is so, it's so demonic, man. Yeah, man. That I come out of all that stuff. And I see people who are still there today. They can't have money, you know, they can't be successful, all kinds of weird stuff that goes on psychologically that makes them lash out at their peers or lash out at people who are doing that stuff. Or when it starts to happen to them, they'll tear it up and run from it. You know what I'm saying? It's a psychological issue that's there, but it's a bondage, man. The word religion means to bind or to hold back. Religion is bondage for so many people. Some people need that bondage, man. We talk about the drug addicts and people who need to be taught when to do this and when to speak and when to do that. Like some people need it. It helps them. You know what I'm saying? But for people who are trying to transcend, people who are trying to do the things that Christ did, I see them chasing their tails, man. And it's sad because I have close friends, man, who are still in it. I work with a lot of people, bro, and a lot of people come out of it. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful to see people, just to read my inbox, like on a daily basis. People, oh my God, I can't believe I found you. I'm just coming out of church, but now you've made it to where I can still believe in God and still feel strongly about psilocybin or whatever. Whatever the case is, different for everybody. But to read those inbox messages, it makes it all worth it. But you have people coming at you. You just have to choose your battles wisely. And I think it's for every platform. Whenever you get a level of fame, of a level of notoriety. I mean, there's people blogging about you. There's people making parody videos and, private chat rooms that just poke fun at you and stuff like that, but it comes with the territory. And it's not just me. I don't know if you've experienced anything like that yet, but it comes with a territory. Maybe more so in the religious and spiritual communities, because there's a lot of fluffy stuff. There's a lot of opinions that are just like theories, and it's not really proven stuff for people. So they can just come with a theory and their theory is right versus your theory, that kind of stuff or whatever. But the backlash comes with growth. It's growing pains, and I've been dealing with it since day one. And I just like to encourage people who are, who are receiving backlash, people who are in religion, but they're not, they're in it, but they're not there, man. They want to check out. There's hope for people, man. You're not alone. And just that one expression, just to let people know that they're not alone. And here's why you're not alone. And then we'll have guests on, talking about our experiences, and it changes their life, man. It's insane. It gives them a confidence and a knowing and an empowerment to know, like, if Truth Seekah did it, I can do it. If this guy did it, then I can do it. And say, no, I'm with you. No, you can. You actually can. Let me show you how I did it. Not to, sit up on this pedestal and like guard your pedestal, and you can't let anybody who has an opposing view on your show. I get that all the time. It's coming from the religious background. People saying like if I had your platform, I would do it this way. I wouldn't let that guy on. I would cut that guy off. I'm like, well, start your own platform and do it. That's not what I do. I love to hear people's stories, So.
Yeah, man, 100%. I do the exact same thing. Man, my mind is going all over. And it's just because
still trying to cram it into.
It's two sides, because the one side is it's like the very I'm a mix of my mom and my dad, and my dad's super direct. If he sees some nonsense, he's going to call it out. My mom is incredibly compassionate. It's just like, well, they're in it, and so I think of, okay, not all religion's wrong. We're not saying that. And you could be an amazing person. Now, on the flip side, I know and have studied, I've studied psychology, mass persuasion, hypnosis. I
Yeah.
at 14, 15, I was like, how do we still have war? I looked at that. I figured out some stuff and I learned more about psychology. And so you've got brainwash in religion and you've got brainwash in education. And because I understand how the brain works, why would you only do the logical, analytical side and demonize the other side? And if you're 4 years old in this big, huge building and everybody's doing this thing, it's the most terrifying thing ever. And so I'm thinking, I'm a Christian. I was born a Christian, right? Well, I didn't know born a Christian. I was raised a Christian. I was raised a Christian in my household. Now, I went through our Christianity. We were both apparently raised Christians, not even close to the same. This is a Canada Christian versus wherever, in a specific church in a specific city.
I was raised in backwoods, fire, brimstone, man screaming till he's red in the face when I was a kid.
Right.
It wasn't a peaceful thing. It was very frightening.
So when we say Christianity, it can mean infinite different things. And you change a pastor, then the stories totally change because it's being created by a man. So that's the first point. And to add on to that, I only have one friend, I think only one friend that is still goes to church and he's still religious, and his family ran the camps. They were like the pastor. And we had a discussion when I was in Nepal, and he's like, God loves you, this and that. And I was like, do you know that I'm not a Christian anymore? Like it's a little bit of I have a different relationship with God. And we had a little bit of a chat. And I was like, the thing is, you think that these monks that I'm meditating with in Nepal are going to hell. These are the most beautiful, peaceful, compassionate. Their whole thing is love and compassion. And they all embody it. They all walk it. They don't have an ideology and then you go shoot somebody or go scream. Hey, they're doing the thing. They're walking the thing. So from the intense perspective, so I like to preface it that if you can just have a look at your religion, what you're doing as a practice, open up and just look at, do a little bit of research on other religions. Because if basically what they wanted to do, the powers that be, I just call them the kings and queens, right? Still in kings and queens, you got to control the mind and you got to control the spirit. And that is happening today. And this is the Great Awakening, where there's enough of us, people out there and information out there that you can access the truth. I said access, funny. You can access the truth. And you can access information that allows you to grow. Yeah, too much of it, totally. And so when you go down that path of your own truth, and you have to unmess yourself up. But when I looked at school, I could do a whole podcast. There's a teacher that won Teacher of the Year in New York, and he wrote a whole book on why school is indoctrination, why it messes up your brain. And that's the system that they're in. So there's all of these different systems. So take a look at your system. But religion is the ultimate system because it has power over your soul and the afterlife. And that is intense.
Yeah.
And
we're just lucky. I'll tell you this. The same spirits are at play as you would see in radical Islam. But we're lucky that Christianity doesn't tell you to go pick, or not Christianity, not because all Islam doesn't teach that at all. But the militant Christians won't tell you to go do harm to another person physically, right? But it's the same spirit at play there. And if the scriptures taught that, and or a pastor taught that, they would do it. Like that same ability to follow and to take orders, and that they would do anything for their eternal resting place. Like it's there. We're, in the West, we're a little bit more civilized. You know what I'm saying? Civilized. We've been there, right? They used to do that, right? They used to kill and go on crusades and things like that. But in the West, it's a little bit more laid back now. But the same spirits of control and the roots of manipulation and witchcraft and things like that, that's what that is. It's like lying to people. And when we're talking about witchcraft, it's just having manipulation, and the pastors are like some of the best people to manipulate a crowd, to give money, to make them feel a certain type of way or whatever, and they're really good at it, man. And it gets into a lot of stuff where we're talking about, making people feel bad, or making them have to feel bad if they don't give money, all kind of stuff like that. It's just so many different levels and layers of manipulation that goes on in all religions. But I come out of the church, I've been in services that they tell you to do stuff, and if you don't do it, you're looked at funny, and you don't want to be looked at funny. You don't want to have them speak against you. And there's all kinds of levels of it that takes place in there. And it goes with what you're talking about of studying mass hypnosis. And man, it's so much we can get into, but there was a preacher I used to follow years ago, Bob Larson. Are you familiar with him? The exorcist. And he goes around and used to preach at a lot of churches. He did a lot of stuff on TV. He would preach, and then people would just start like manifesting demons and stuff while he's preaching. What they don't show you is that he does a mass hypnosis while the cameras are off. He makes everybody he makes everybody go into a trance state of meditation, bring the lights down, and he tells you to go back to your place of torment. And then most often it's about women who've been molested. I want you to see your uncle walking through the door. And when he comes in, I want you to look at him. And you know what he's about to do. And he's doing this mass hypnosis. And then people just start bawling, crying, and freaking out because he brings them back to that point of pain. And then they turn the cameras on and they put the cameras in their face. And he's in their face with a microphone. Listen to me, devil. And they're like reliving this trauma. And it's crazy. It's this mass hypnosis. And they even call it like a mass deliverance where they make everybody go to this place. Wouldn't that be something similar, man, of the power of suggestion and things like that? The same type of spirit that's in operation there.
Yeah, man, and that's again, like, I like to be the soft part of like, why is religion okay, and be that. But if I go the hard masculine of stuff like that, it's super upsetting. So for the religious people, if somebody's coming to this podcast and from you and they're in that, check out Darren Brown, and then just look up look up Zeitgeist, look up a few documentaries, but check out Darren Brown. That's exactly what you're talking about. And I know hypnosis. I teach it. All it is programming your own mind.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. If you think that this is some crazy stuff, don't think about a purple rhinoceros, or try not to think about a yellow elephant. That's how hypnosis works. And so especially in a trance, it becomes more powerful. Yeah. And so that's where it really gets upsetting for me, because that's how it can be used. And that's,
well, let's look at this. Let's be the devil's advocate too, from their position. So I'm against that. I didn't know that was taking place, and that's how it's done. But what if the person who does manifest that entity or spirit or hurt, trauma, whatever, that's what entities are. It's hurt and trauma. That's what the impressions are. What if that person gets healing from that, like through that though? You know what I'm saying? So there's always like, there's just multiple ways of looking at it. Like if he really leads that person into a place of forgiveness, but it's not bad. Like as far as hypnosis or looking at manipulating your own mind, or for a good way, or speaking words over people that's going to help them and bring them out. It seems bad, but just like, okay, what if that person finds healing? And there is, though. It's definitely there. So it's so easy just to kind of, look at something like that and get offended and see the bad that it's doing, because it's definitely causing some harm to some people. They're getting a reaction, but I think if the person gets healed, then maybe he did the right thing,
Well, yeah, and I really like how you did that, because there are so many different sides and angles, and so I think it'll come down to the intention. What is that person's intention, and what is the result? So again, you look at just fitness. If the result is they got in shape and they're happy, great. Might have been in a peculiar method, but they did it. So that's the result. But if the result is, they take that energy and then you're afraid and you get in this cycle system and you give them your money and whatever the case, maybe not, maybe a result, maybe it's like, they're trying to do something. So just being aware, and that's what awareness is. And so the upset part was thinking about the witch burning. They murdered so many people under the guise of religion. Like, just look at it. Just look at the history. Is like, okay, Jesus said, basically, thou shalt not kill. Okay, what's the total number of followers? Hold on, I was going to come down and be like, hey guys, what's the total number that you guys have a collective have killed? You totally missed the message. It's like, it's love, kindness, compassion, be it, walk it. And so what I wanted to touch on a little bit is where I think that the distortion happens is, who is God? What is God? And the conversations with God, try that. That's a very nice perspective. Now, what I think is happening is they say God is Jesus, and it's like saying God is the Son, and Jesus was the master pointing at the sun, or pointing at something that is like universal source, nature, every single thing that's here it's the God force, it's nature. And another really great set of books is The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. Jesus makes an appearance in that book and just gives you that, when I said boom, like it just resonates with so much love and peace and harmony. But he's pointing to the sun, but people will point at him. So it's like, no, Jesus is the God. It's like, no, I was pointing at the sun. And then Buddha's like, yo, it's the sun, right? And then all the other ascendants, it's like the sun. It's like, hey, the sun is touching all life here. We are all getting it. We are all the same. We all have that same power. Now you got to learn how to connect with that force, God. You need to learn how to connect with God. Energy, nature, yourself. In the Aquarian not the Aquarian Gospel, and Jesus and the Essenes, which is like about the Essenes, right? Yeah, so a group of masters. So there's 4 ways to know God. One is through spiritual study. So you don't just study one book, you study groups of texts of different things from different perspectives so you can find the truth. If you study all religions, you'll find the similar truths, the message. You'll be able to decode the message. If you don't look at other perspectives, you probably won't be able to decode it, or you'll take it literally. 2 is as a real teacher, somebody who is the embodiment of it, and they resonate truth, love, peace, wisdom, kindness. That's a teacher. 3 is go in, meditate your butt off. Just go in. That's probably the best and most effective way, because you realize like you are the God, like you are God force. Nature's within you. What's breathing you? What's breathing the birds? What's growing the plants? That's a part of you. You're a part of God. You're a part of the whole thing, as is every single other thing. And then the last one is nature. Just go into nature all the time. Nature. And it's harmonic. It's connected. There's no indoctrination. Nobody's shouting. Like when I go to the States, like you can feel it, right? The billboards, like, in Canada, just imagine going down and seeing 40 billboards and they're all like, love, harmony, dance, collaboration, kindness, compassion. It's just like, this guy's going to murder you. 44 dead. Watch out. You're going to get your throat slit. Your mind is going to go, holy shit. And you get into the fear state. And when people are that's what it is, fight or flight fear state. And when you're afraid, you can be controlled. And the idea is to get to that place of fearlessness and knowing that you're infinite, then I have infinite possibilities. So that's my rant.
I love it, man. No, it's so true. And I think that a lot of those things you're talking about finding God, I think that if we look at Jesus as a example, I think he did all those things, man. I think that I like to look at his life, and I look at, the life of a yogi, and I see them very similar, like even to the places where they went to pray and to meditate for hours. Like Jesus would go on top of a mountain, or he would go inside of a mountain. I mean, where do the Tibetan monks pray? On top of the Himalayas, or they go inside of a salt cave or some type of, little mountain. It's very similar. And then we see like what's birthed from that. Like he comes out being this really peaceful guy and has a plan. He's mission minded. He wants to change the life of people around him. And then spiritual encounters happen with that. And that kind of stuff, the whole meditation and stuff, meditating and then meditating in nature is kind of like 2 birds with 1 stone. You know what I'm saying? Is you're able to do that. And it's so beautiful, man. And the fruit that it produces in your life that makes you more connected. Someone asked me one time, they were like, okay, what is your music, True Seekah, doing for the environment? Like, how is it helping the environment? How is it helping, all of this stuff? And it makes you more conscious, like spirituality and the music and everything that I embody with that. It makes you more conscious of the way you treat nature, animals, like, because you see it as an expression of yourself. The way you treat people, you want to be out in nature more. And all of that is a part of it. Grounding, putting your feet on the ground, and it's a beautiful practice, all of it. And so I would agree with those tenets, man. I really would.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the add-on. And when you're sharing that, what it made me think about consciousness. Okay, so what is consciousness? Well, it's awareness, and you can think about it in another way, is the spectrum of light. We only are aware of some small number, 0.01, whatever it is. It's very tiny. So we only are aware of a very small part of the light spectrum. So when you open up your awareness, you open up the part of the light spectrum. And if you're coming from a religious standpoint, or you want to connect with God, God said, be the light. Now, what is light to you? Just intuitively think about, what is the light? What did he say? He said, be loving, love your neighbor, be kind, be truthful, be compassionate, do good deeds, things like that. Feel it. That feels light. To be compassionate, that's what they say in Buddhism, is be loving and compassionate, or be kind, be compassionate, be loving. That's it. That's the whole thing mixed around. How do you unmess your brain up through tenets? And they're just ideas. They're just principles, the Four Noble Truths. They're brilliant, right speech, right action, right thought. If you think about, how do I murder that guy? And you think about that for a long period of time, that's a crazy thought, maybe not in the light spectrum. So just think about light, love, compassion, harmony, kindness, collaboration, growth, wisdom, forgiveness. That's all light. It feels light. Now let's go over here a little bit. Anger, judgment, depression. What else do you got? You got all kind anxiety, and so it feels dark, and that's where the switch can happen. So if you want to be the light, if you want to be like Jesus, be the light, be light, not think about the light, not because you can't go judge and manipulate and try to go find truth seeker and be like, I'm going to go prove wiser. Why would you waste all your time on that? Why don't you figure out what you want to do?
It makes you feel better though, like about your beliefs. You know what I'm saying? I've been there.
You're hunting people down. That was your a few years ago. You're just hunting people and just doing.
I totally did. No, I used my energy to do that, and so I understand when people do it to me. I understand what they get out of it.
Son of a gun.
It's part of the karma, though. Really, it really is part of the karma, man. Because I did that to other Christians for the most part. It was because it was like within the whole schism within Christianity about which Christian denomination was right. It's wild. It's like gangbanging. It's like I call it
spiritual gangbanging.
Yeah. Hey man, what side you represent? Blah blah blah. Oh, you that? And like, so I have conversations with close friends who want to like go into depth with me about a biblical verse or a passage or whatever. And I know that is something that leads to contention. And I said, bro, I don't even want to talk about this with you. Why, man? We're supposed to talk about this. No, because I love you as a brother. And I know what I've seen this mess people up. You want to get into sectarianism and if you want to see if I agree with you and your stance and why you agree with it and if I'm wrong and stuff. So like, most of it, I just keep a lot of that stuff to myself. I don't even want to go out there and just make enemies. And I've seen, like I said, best friends, man, over years. I've had it happen to me on many occasions. And I try not to be, rude. I try not to do it on purpose. I like to make people think. I like to make people think outside the box and challenge their beliefs. But I think I try to do it in a healthy way. I'm not trying to make enemies. It just comes with the territory. I mean, the scripture says, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Like now you hate me because I'm just being honest about my situation, about my beliefs or whatever. And they're not bad beliefs. I'm not demonizing you, belittling you. The thing is, it gets down to when, just like Jesus was trying to heal people, man. He's casting demons out of people and people had problems with that. Like they found contention with him healing people and doing good deeds and doing good works. I'm from the psychological standpoint. Why does that make you feel bad that I'm helping people? So I believe when we're talking about the light and the love and all that, whatever is light and love, I believe it's Jesus. He says that all the law and all the prophets and the whole Bible, all that prophecies, it all hangs upon loving the Lord your God with all your heart and loving your neighbor as yourself. And he says, if you do these, you've kept all of that perfectly. Like the tenets about eating and just all of these laws and regulations that were symbolic. If you're walking in love, you're fulfilling the law, the whole law, and all. He even says, I give you a new law, and this is what it is. I'm gonna make it easy for you. Go out there and love people. And for some reason, people have a hard time doing that, man. And they get mad at people who are. I don't care. Like I can tell, it's called fruit, man. The Bible calls it fruit. It's pretty much the like when you do something, It's the evidence of what comes from that. Like I was talking about doing hard drugs, smoking crack, and doing heroin. What does that produce in people? Are you trying to steal stuff from people all the time? Your hygiene's bad now. You know what I'm saying? All of this kind of stuff. And it's like, look, I'm not trying to do that. But you see stuff that's helping people, man, and makes somebody a better person. Why can't we celebrate that? I don't care who's saying it. And Jesus said the same thing. Not even Jesus, but even some of the disciples. Paul goes on and says, look, let's look at these people who don't even have the law. They don't even have the Bible or whatever. But by nature, they're doing the things that we've been talking about by nature. Like their conscience bears witness with right and wrong. They know that they're like, not to steal, not to cheat, not to commit adultery. All these things that are having to be like tenets and ordinances, they're by nature doing this because they are fulfilling the law of love. That's for everybody. That's for the just and the unjust. That's for Christians, non-believers, atheists, Satanists. Like, that's a standard, man. And people by nature are doing this better than the ones who have the checklist and have the Bible verses and all that kind of stuff. That's for me, man. I'm telling you, it was huge. It really was. And I think it's eye-opening just to know that you're not the only one that has it figured out, or your practice gives you the same results,
Yeah, 100%, man. And I was thinking about kind of a comic book analogy of going to a tribe, a peaceful tribe. Our bodies know, we know within us, we have the connection with God, spirit, source, nature. We have that. And again, like, use God. What's not the bearded guy? It's not Jesus. It's source, it's nature, it's all life. It's the one thing. It's the oneness. They talk about it in Zen. You can look at it. You find it. They talk about it in all religions. You can figure it out. Some of them, actually, a lot of the religions come from the sun, right? So if you could look at Zeitgeist, and you can find this. You can find this information. You just have to look outside of the blinder of the one trying to scare the crap out of you. And it is terrifying. So I know, it's just take a peek. Just take like a small peek. So if you go to this peaceful space, right, you come into this space and you have a book in your hand talking about the clouds or the sun or nature, which you don't know shit about, because nobody actually has any idea what's going on. We're using words, which are sound vibrations, to explain stuff that disappears and reappears out of existence. We know that now. So nobody really knows what's going on. So you got this book, you're going to present them on how to live life, but they are already doing it. So what's actually happening? It's a man with his idea around something that nobody understands. And so now, from a higher level perspective, if they've learned some things and they're talking about principles and they're living the principles and they're harmonic in nature. So if you have a bunch of trees and your neighbors are happy and people are loving and peaceful and kind and growing, you go into a forest that's growing, right? Mm-hmm. That's in harmony. You go to a place that's decaying, they're in battle. And that's really what it comes back to. Are you growing? Are you growing your own tree in nature? Are you supportive of the environment around you? Do you let the squirrel that you don't really like so much, but he's like, you know what, you're a part of this too. You can come hang out on my arm. That's all good with me. You know what I mean? I'm just going to go over here when you come around or something. So it's just literally coming to like this pace of harmony that we know it. And so we can get tricked with some external force trying to make something so serious and then hold on to that seriousness because you have to, because it's fabricated. And because it's fabricated, it takes so much more energy to keep holding up because you're proving it to yourself. So, getting back to your own truth. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
No, I've been dealing with it 100%.
Yeah,
man. Just trying to, and then you try to find people that believe in the same thing you believe in, and it's like you said, it could be scary, but there's liberation on the other side, and people are coming out of religion, people are coming out of dogma, and they're embracing more of a spiritual path, and you don't have to give up your love for the scriptures. Like, there's people who get it, man. You know what I'm saying? There's people who understand that they don't have it figured out, and they have more questions and stuff, and and it's okay to ask questions. Like, that's the biggest thing, like in the church realm and stuff, that it wasn't never okay to ask questions that went against the orthodoxy or what we believe, or if you go to a church that believes in tithing and you have to give 10% of your money to them, and if you don't, then God's judging you and God will take it. It's crazy manipulation, big time. But if you even that little subject, once you study out, you find out that it's not really true or what the scriptures are teaching. If you speak out against that, you're done. Like, we got to get you out of here. Like, you're getting into our pocket, and it's that type of mentality that people run into, and like, you become a threat. So I look back at like what was done to me in Christianity, what's still being done, but it's only natural for them because they are on that fight or flight. They have this system here, and it's working good. Like, this paychecks here, we're paying mortgages of lots of people and stuff, and here's this guy coming with a new idea or speaking something contrary to what we believe. Like, they have to do something with this individual, right? The people are starting to come to that person for answers instead of the pastor. We got to get this guy out of here. We're gonna have a talk with him first. If not, we just get him out of here, or just do something with what you find a lot of being done now in evangelical Christianity is something they call ghosting. We just tell people to stay away from him. Give him the cold shoulder. He'll eventually fall off, and that's what happens, man. But it's natural though. I mean, they have a business, and they have to protect it.
Yeah, it's a business, and you keep like chiseling their foundation. Like, you're like an annoying woodpecker. It's like, what do you get out of here, man?
Like, if you go to Walmart and you just keep every day, you take a TV.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Next day, a TV. Hey, this guy took 6 TVs from us, man. We got to cut him off.
Totally, man. Totally. And people are the most valuable currency, and what society, if you look at if you look at history and you study it, you'll find out that it's controlled by a certain amount of people, and they do not want a free thinking society connected to their own empowerment, doing whatever they want. It's so you start mental, spiritual, then you unravel it. So it can get interesting if you want to go down that rabbit hole, and you definitely have. And you're kind of like the bodhisattva in the middle of it, because you could run away, but you're in it, and people are seeing a different example. And so that's the light, and that's a really hard task, because you're talking about getting some hate. I've only had like the smallest amount of hate, and it like crushed me. I'm so soft.
It's bad, bro. It's bad.
Yeah. So,
too, though. Like,
I'm going to get shrapnel because of you. And I'm like, oh no, and I'm going to have like the crazies, right? And then like,
it's funny, you know what though? Cause like, I go on a lot of spiritual shows and stuff, and this is weird because I'm in a balance. I'm in a weird place because I deal with the religious people who are coming out of Christianity. I talk openly about God and use the biblical terms. And for a lot of spiritual people, they can't stand that. They can't stand talking about anything, or they'll like belittle you. I've been on a lot of big platforms and stuff, and it's really weird. There's a mixed reactions, so I do get the religious people who come at me. You're talking about the Kundalini. You just said Jesus practiced Kundalini or whatever. And then I get the New Agers or the spiritualist people who say, he's just a religious. He's just teaching religion. He's still stuck in Christianity. And see, he's talking about God and he believes in God. And so it's like, I get it from both sides. So I have to know my calling and know what I'm supposed to be doing, and just try to do it as best as I can, because I get those bad messages. There's YouTube comments out there too. I get made fun of the way you speak and not being from the South and being a Christian or whatever the case is. And you just got to know. I've been doing this a long time though, man. I really have. I've been podcasting for a long time too. And the thing about me, because I've always been like a public figure, even in the Christian world. So my whole transformation has been public, and it's been hard to like being a street evangelist and doing it on video and people seeing our videos and stuff. And then getting into Michael Tessarian after doing that. And then there like people who we inspired, man, to go out there and be street preachers or be Christian rappers or be evangelists or whatever. And then you're talking about Tessarian and Jordan Maxwell, and Jordan Maxwell's promoting your music and stuff. And they're like, oh, you're a Satan worshiper now. Like, they really believe that in their heart of hearts. You know what I'm saying? So it's a really weird crossover. But it's funny now because a lot of the Christians are coming into what I'm doing. They're cool with it. I'm trying to get them to do what I'm doing, like to just be open about their encounters, whatever it is. Just be open about it. Don't be afraid to talk about your psilocybin encounters. That's a big one for Christians, But there's a lot of Christians who do psilocybin, and they go to church and they do this, but they could never talk about it. I went on men's retreats and trips with Christians, and we all did psilocybin, had a beautiful encounter, spiritual encounters, and they won't talk about it. Like I said, they tell me not to talk about it because they don't want me to say their name. I had to like edit down an interview because I said a friend of mine's name, and he just came at me and was like, dude, I don't want, I have a job. My wife is a teacher. You know what I'm saying? And if they trace it back to me and trace it back to my wife, then we're going to be in trouble. So, and there's good reason why. Maybe everybody isn't supposed to talk about it, but I feel like if we found the keys to the universe, man, if we find out like what's working and what can help people and change lives, but we're told not to talk about it, that's a challenge, man. I'm going to talk about it. I'm just going to be open with my story. I've been open since day one, and I have nothing to hide, So that's a good thing when you don't have anything, you just open, because then they can't, they can't take anything from you. They can't make up anything because you're just open.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you're touching on a really important point. What I've kind of shared here and there throughout the podcast is like, I'm just sharing where I'm at now. You're out there on the streets and you're pulling people in, and maybe you were so good at it and you get like 10,000 little young preachers. And then you're like, oh shit, whoops. Right. You're like, oh God. It's like, this is where I am now. And it's just like, if you can just share honestly with where you are now,
yeah,
and why you're there and what's working and what isn't, then we can kind of feedback that information. I'm just sharing where I am now. Maybe in 10 years, I'm going to be the super religious one. Who knows? How's it going to go?
Exactly.
But I can be honest with where I am now. And so, find your own truth, your perspective, your upbringing, your beliefs, those are for you. But you can share them in a spirit of collaboration, and we can learn from each other. Just like maybe the hunter-gatherer times, you're the guy who goes and kills the thing and brings back the food, and I'm the guy who's a master fisherman. But if we don't collaborate, we can't learn from each other and grow as a species, right? And if I'm the guy who loves the fish god and you like, no, it's the elk god, and we're trying to get all the women in the tribe, that's essentially what it is. All the women, all the money, all the power, rather than collaborating for the benefit of the entire community. So
it's still going on, man, and I speak to that all the time, and I'm presented with ways for me to do that, to belittle other people. Like that's a natural thing. I used to do it, so I'm able to check it. And then there's other people who are more fringe, on the outer fringes of Christianity, doing similar things to what I'm doing, but there's a trigger, like they're doing similar, but then they don't go here, or me, I don't go there to what they're doing. But I appreciate the good stuff that they're doing. Like they're getting people to think, they're getting people outside of the four walls of Christianity. Even though they're fringe and they got some crazy stuff they believe in, I still believe in the good that they're doing. And I get backlash from those people. Like they say, oh, stay away from True Seekah. He's leading you. The Kundalini is the serpent energy. That's the devil. And the third eye is the gateway to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is the devil. Like they have all these crazy doctrines that they can't prove. That's just their belief. And they demonize what I teach and all that kind of stuff. So I want to lash out sometimes, but I have to catch myself. It's like, you know what? When you lash out and you try to expose people and point fingers, you're in that fight or flight, trying to win people to yourself. And the way they do that in Christianity is where I come from. I'm able to see that so good, but it's in other religions too, is you put other people down, you bash other people, and then kind of give a link to what you're doing, Hey, check out what we teach about this. True Seekah, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but check out what we say about the Holy Spirit. Check out what we say about meditation, blah, blah, blah. And I've been a part of that. I used to do it. So maybe that's why I can see it. But you can see that, right? You understand when people are lashing out in order to make themselves look better. I mean, it's written within a lot of holy books. It's written within the, the Celestine prophecies, and trying to, make people look bad so that you look better. And I try to stay away from that. I try not to name names. Maybe I should, though. I'm really torn within some things, but I know that everything I've built, I haven't been the aggressor. You know what I'm saying? I've just been, let me just bring me to the table, and it's been working really well. So to switch it up now at this point may be a step backward,
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and I'm pretty sure that sometime I'm gonna have to deal with it. I think it's the energy coupons, right? You you might be in the truth and trying to express it to them. Then you're just given, 4 blocks of energy when you could have just gone outside, connected with nature, meditated, created another podcast. It's like, that's, this isn't productive. You and I are having a productive. I could even have a productive conversation with somebody who believes I'm totally wrong, as long as they're willing to have a productive conversation about it. I'll just share one thing for those people. Is like, I learned something called the formula for truth, 0 and 90 degrees on a scale. Okay. And so you're religious and God is the way, and I'm an atheist, right? Now, what most people do is defend atheists between the other way, 0 and 90. So they're like, no, my way is right. No. So they don't listen. Now, when I just let the atheist or the Satanist or the evangelical Christian, which is like that, when you go nuts with it, it's the same thing as like, it's the same thing. You just went really crazy with it. Now, your perspective still has value because that's where you are. And if I open all the way up and I don't judge it, that 45 degrees of information I'm now privy to. So I did it with a flat earther, and my mind thought, it wasn't even necessarily the theory, the things that it kind of unlocked as he was showing it had nothing to do whether the earth is flat or round. It was when I listened completely without judgment, I thought about 2 different things about just nature because I let him share completely. So now I opened up to the full spectrum of light, of information, and then that's their information. Now, do I hold on to it and bring it into my own? No, because I've had my own life experience, and I'll just kind of take what I'll take.
Yeah.
And, but I've opened up, right? So if we can
That's
open
what I
up
do,
that light spectrum, and the
you
other thing,
you try to find what you can agree on and kind of build upon that.
yeah. And you get a whole, you're like, oh man, I've never thought about it from that perspective. And, perspective is freedom, right? Slavery is one perspective. It's one choice. Go to your job. This is the way it is. Do not even consider getting off this tram. It's a train. It doesn't come off, right? Freedom is the option to get off, to look around, check sites. Actually, I'm going to take an airplane today, or whatever the case is. That's really freedom. And just the last thing that I'll share for you, if you struggle with it, because I've had it like, not struggle, but like you get it a lot more, and I couldn't handle it, bro. I'm so soft. So I think I'm building up to it, because I've had like a couple comments and I'm like, feelings. But kindness, that's what I kind of was with this native elder, David Lombear Senepas, and I was telling him about somebody was just talking shit, and and he's like, you don't need to be right to be kind. And I was like, they'll remember kindness. And no doubt. So then what we're doing is we're alchemizing that pain, and that's ego too, because then I realized, it's my own ego, because I know this, like, the character of Matt can't hear anything that's not, good, right? That's also ego. I'm like, I'm protecting because I'm a good guy and I do know what I'm talking about. And this is valuable, right? Matt, you suck. Everything you say is wrong. You're an idiot and you're spreading lies. Well, the ego is just the identity that I'm doing the opposite. And really, I'm just being, I'm not doing either. And that's like the transcendence. So, you could be kind is the point, man.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Dude, well, we've been going for a while, and I really appreciate you coming on. And I really do, have such a deep respect after this conversation of the amount of courage it takes to speak out. It makes me think of, what's happening in child, abuse of women. I'm on the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, and this is looking at human trafficking, the sex trade, ritual satanic sacrifices, some of the darkest shit on the planet. And the church is linked into that. And not all.
I don't know if you heard my story, but I got some experience with that.
Do you want to share it?
We'll cover it on my show. I know.
Okay.
I know. I want to get you on my podcast too, because I got to run off of here. But we'll go into detail. I'll just say that the show True Detective, which what that was about, was based off of a church that I used to go to when I came out of like really dark witchcraft. I ran to a church, and the church ended up being that church.
Holy crap!
Yeah, they got the whole show based on it and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't see nothing like that go on though. You know what I'm saying? While I was there, it was probably maybe a year after that a lot of crazy stuff started happening that we had left that church. I was only there for a short period of time, but that whole television show was based off of that pastor, and that whole story, which people in law enforcement was involved, the teachers, they're trading kids out. It's insane. Yeah.
It's insane, man. And that's what I mean is like a deep respect for you having the courage to do that. You know, thankfully I chose to grow up in Canada somehow, or I did, and I had a
Made
freedom
this
to
agreement before
express.
you came here.
Yeah. Right. So I was like, okay, I can't deal with that. You were way stronger than me. You're like, no, man, I'm going to plant myself right in the crap. I'm like, oh, dude. He's like, you were brave. Okay, I'm going to go over here. You know, I got
It's working,
nature.
man.
Yeah. So just appreciate you for being able to do that. So anything you want to leave the listeners with, and just how to get more of you. And if you want to maybe sing like a lyric or something, you could do that too. I'll leave that up to you. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I'll say this, that you know, I have my own podcast. You're going to be coming on my podcast pretty soon. We're going to cross pollinate, so we're gonna do something where we cover your story and stuff as well. But if anybody wants to check out my music or check out my podcast, anything that I do, they can just go to trueseekah.com, and there you get access to all my music and podcasts and all that good stuff. So let me see.
And
if
I'll say too, if you like mine, you're gonna like yours, because I've seen some of your guests, and you'll go because of your your background, like some more on the religious side and things like that, because that's your audience and stuff. But and you're way into, you have some really credible, interesting UFO, super out there people. So you have some incredible guests as well. So if you like my show, you're gonna like your show.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to find a new song that I wrote. I know I wrote it down. I was going to try to just kind of give some of these in a poetic form, but I can't find it. But I'll give you something. This is a song called Mystic Mind. Transcend the physical, spiritual, individual, faith followed by works, and we're healing them with the syllables. Third eye visual, teaching mystical principles, knowledge are from the prudent, given into the simple. Overactive imagination, they medicated and then sedated, expect the worst and exaggerated. I'm frustrated. Where we headed is not where we've been. It's Kali Yuga, we at the hands of the fallen men. Righteous teachers were given wisdom like Solomon. I grab my pen and write blessings that will bind up the jinn. It's God's breath and I feel it like I'm feeling the wind. We've come too far to look back and start over again. Stimulate your mind, you seek. You will find the kingdom lives inside. Wake up, realize you need nothing that's outside. The blind leading the blind, Pharisees and false scribes. Religion will only blind. Mystic Mind.
Bro, that was friggin' epic. that was so good, dude. Man, amazing. Okay, well, yeah, I definitely recommend everybody check out your work, check out your songs. The last note I'll say is my buddy Adam Roa. There's people doing it through art is a way to seed that information. Yeah. So you're doing it through music. Yeah. So I recognize it and I appreciate that, man.
Definitely. I love it. It's creative, man. Creating anything, man, I think is the biggest aspect of worship back to our creator. If we made in the likeness and image of a creator God, and then when we create in that same image and expression, like I think that's the highest act of worship, man. It's beautiful. I love it. I love the feeling that you get to present something that never existed until you breathed it into existence like he did. So that's beautiful.
Like, yeah, man. Creator.
Let's do it, bro. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, man. Take care. Thanks for coming on. Everybody, thanks for listening. Peace.